you can have everything you want in life, everything. You just can't have it at 22. And if you try and have it at 22 or 25 or 28, you will probably continue paying for it for the rest of your life. But if you're willing to wait a period of time and do the foundational things necessary to be able to afford that lifestyle, you could probably have it by the time you're 28 or 30, and then you'll afford it for the rest of your life.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It Rhymes with Odd. You're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today, we're hopping back in the booth with another amazing guest. We got Adam Carroll in the house. Adam.
What's up, Ryan? How are you?
The show.
Oh, I'm so excited, man.
Adam and I have been connected for many years.
Yeah.
Probably 6, 7 years, something like that.
I think it's more than that. I want to say it had to have been 2017 or 18 when we first met.
Sure.
Originally.
And God, almost 10 years. What the heck's happening?
I know.
Adam is a speaker, an author, a coach, and as we'll talk, kind of somebody that's more in the finance space and the speaking space, but just with a machete out here, clearing your own way in the world. So
yeah, man.
Super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to tell my story. Knowing that the conversations you have generally touch on some of the lessons and the failures along the way. Those are the things that I don't always get to talk about. So I actually really dig talking about those because that's where the lessons come from.
Sure. I always say do it for the plot. Like if you're going to fail,
Totally.
Just keep your life interesting.
Yeah.
I think something, especially for folks that are trying to see, is this podcast a good one to listen to all the way through? I think you talking about especially the shred method, as we'll talk about.
Yep.
This method of using lines of credit to pay down debt at an accelerated rate. We'll share some stories about this, but man, you got some case studies of people that have used this method that they're paying their homes off in like just a few years. Crazy times. So.
It is. It's mind blowing. They not only are paying homes off, they're investing at massive scale and able to retire, 15, 20 years earlier than they would have otherwise. Because they start to look at it differently. So I'm sure we'll dig into that.
Sure. Super excited, man. I think this will be a fun one for people. But yeah, let's jump in. So for the people that I always say, if you're in an Uber with a chatty driver and you got a 20, 30-minute drive and they just keep talking your ear off and they ask you, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
What would you tell that person? Besides, I'm tired. Don't talk to me.
Oh, man. This is such a hard question because when people say, what do you do? I'm like, well, what day are we talking about? And that might determine what I'm doing that day. I first associate myself with being a speaker and an educator because that's how I've made my living for the last 20 plus years. Today, I probably tell people a little bit more. I'm a fintech entrepreneur. And that is the shred method that you referred to just a minute ago. That started really officially in 2021. I started selling it earlier than that, but I took over as the owner of the code in about 2021, early 22. And so for the last 3 years, I've been just devoutly building a fintech SaaS model business, and it's been a blast.
Did you ever think you'd be a developer? Like, what the heck?
No.
Your trajectory has kind of gone off.
It's kind of a funny story too, Ryan, because I went to a SaaS Academy conference, which was put on by a guy named Dan Martell. You might know.
Oh, yes. I just read his book, Buy Back Your Time.
Yep.
And then I just hired my first employee right after I read that. So
that's awesome.
Kind of crazy.
Awesome. He's a brilliant dude. He aligned himself with really smart people who put together a conference. And I went to this conference for the first time and was talking to some other founders at the happy hour the night before it officially kicked off. And somebody's like, oh, tell me what you do. And I'm going through it. And he's like, well, who's your product owner? And, I kind of have this blank stare and I go, I think I am. And what is that? And he goes, oh, you're a non-technical founder. And I didn't even know this was a thing, but I'm a non-technical founder. So I couldn't tell you exactly what the code does, but I have really smart people on my team who know it. And I know enough to be dangerous now where I can say, I think it's in this module or in these lines of code is where this thing lives. And lucky for me, I found someone who can translate it for me. So it's good. So the lesson is you don't have to know code.
Right.
And especially today, you don't have to know code.
But you need to know enough to be dangerous, right?
You do.
A little bit. So
yeah. I got to know what it does, how it works and what it's trying, the math behind it.
Sure.
Essentially.
When I always hear and we'll talk about this too, but a lot of people say don't invest in what you don't understand.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that are in a business or run a business, their whole livelihood's hinging on something they have no clue. But
totally.
You also, if you don't know the technical side, it's like, well, who's buying it? What's their pain points? How can we solve those? Like there's ways to know, but there's some people that are just like, I feel like people that are employees of businesses that are really confusing, that I don't really know what we do. I just get a paycheck and show.
Yeah. May not be a recipe for success.
Right.
And to that end, I have had really good luck hiring people who learn the system and they know it inside and out. So I have no problem putting those folks in contact with clients of mine or prospects that are coming through the door, because these people, they know it. They know the content. They know what it does. They're experts. So I feel very fortunate to have built that in the last 3 years.
That's fantastic. I think it'll be interesting because your journey's been that of what I would say like a traditional like speaker, author, coach, like those three things kind of go hand in hand, but doing these spinoffs with other businesses and things.
Yeah.
Let's take it back to kind of your origin story. Maybe let's start in like college, because you went to UNI, right?
I did.
So talk to me about the Panther days.
Yeah, go Cats. Go Cats.
Tell me about that and like how you first got into finance.
What's funny is people will ask, oh, you must have been an accounting major or a finance major. I was a broadcast journalism major. So this is more normal and natural for me than running numbers and all those kinds of things. But in college, I would consider myself a social student. I was not an academic student. I was there for the social aspect of college. And you and I did not disappoint. We had an amazing time. Shout out to all the people I partied with at Shag Nasties and Jokers and Tony's and wherever else. You and I, for me, was more about realizing that I had my financial head up my financial ass the entire time. And when I graduated, I had massive amounts of student loan debt that I shouldn't have had, mainly because I wanted to start businesses in college. So I was using some of that easily obtainable money to go buy vending machines and do all sorts of other schemes along the way. All of which I think led me to where I am today, though, Ryan. It's like we cut our teeth and we fail and we try and we try and we try. And eventually all of those tries and failures lead us to this realization of like, oh, well, I tried that. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try it this time because I think that could be different. And I think all of those things have just paved the path that I'm on today. So I left UNI a debt statistic, went out and did my first couple of jobs in my turbulent 20s. And when I was 28, I was driving around in my car listening to motivational speakers, on it was a cassette tape. I'm going to be honest, date myself here.
Did you have Tony Robbins in your mirror?
Yeah, I did, man. I was shouting at myself in the mirror to pump myself up every day. But it was like Tony and Zig Ziglar and Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield and all the greats. And Mark Victor Hansen said something on one of the talks and one of the CDs or cassettes I was listening to. And he said that professional speaking was one of the most noble professions because you could change people's lives, you could travel the world, and you got paid a lot of money to do it. And at 28, I was like, that is the trifecta. This is what I want, right? So from that point forward, I started pursuing that hardcore. And the money, the financial education piece for me came about because I realized I had been a debt disaster and I fixed it in about 24 months. And then I just started sharing my story with everybody.
That's crazy. I guess when it comes to the speaking side, when you decide I want to do this, like you're a very well-spoken person now. Were you a complete disaster back then, or were you, did you have the gift of gab early on is what I'm saying?
Yeah, I probably had the gift of gab. I remember being a kid and wanting to perform. And, when people say, oh, well, did you know you always wanted to do this? I think I knew that I always wanted to make people laugh or entertain in some way, and thought I wanted to do acting at one point, and then realized, I don't really want to do that. I want to entertain and educate and inspire people. And this was a great opportunity to do it. So yeah, I think it was ingrained a little bit, but I definitely worked on it over the years.
Sure. So you start out in this speaking world. I'm assuming you did some free gigs. You're at the local Kiwanis Club and just any retirement group that'll listen to you that they can't walk her away fast enough or roll away in their wheelchair. Like what was kind of those first ones like for you?
I tried to stay away from assisted living facilities, but I did my fair share of Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions Club, Optimist Club, Chamber of Commerce events. And I will tell people when I'm coaching them on getting into speaking, you're going to do some freebies. Like you have to go hone your material and practice your craft and find out what jokes work and which ones don't. It's no different than any touring comedian going to all the small clubs and testing their jokes out. And you can see them as they're doing it. They're like, oh, okay, that one didn't work. I got to rewrite this punchline. I was doing that over and over and over again. I was just doing it at like $250 and $500 and $1,000 a gig clips, in hopes that, and in planning for the point where I could charge 10 grand and 15 and 20 grand to go do the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of the wild thing is a lot of people don't realize the market there is for this stuff. Cause I mean, you're doing something that's the scariest thing ever.
Right.
You'd think skydive instructor or brain surgeon or shark dive instructor or something crazy.
Right.
Getting up on a stage and talking to people. What a wild concept.
Yeah, it blows my mind. And today, maybe it's just because I've done it, 1,000, 1,500 times. It blows my mind when people are like, I don't know how you do that. Well, if you went into the OR, 1,500 times to open a brain up.
Nurse, where's my gloves?
It's like, this is pretty normal. I still get nerves, I suppose you could call them. I don't know if they are. I don't know if they're butterflies. I've stopped saying, oh, I'm nervous or I'm anxious. I just say, I'm really excited because physiologically, your body doesn't know the difference between excitement and nervousness, but our brain calls it something. And then oh, I'm just so nervous. I'm so nervous. So I stopped saying that years and years ago. I would just say, I'm really excited about today. Like I've got all this pent up energy and I can't wait to get it out, let it out on stage.
Sure. What kind of preparation goes into a speech that's, like you said, like a $25,000 ticket speech? Is it you're doing the same canned speech you've done multiple times, or is there custom pieces? Like what's the prep process like for kind of a bigger ticket speech?
When I started doing more big ticket speeches, I did level up in my preparation. And I hate to say that like, oh, the folks before that did not get the best version of me, because I think they did. I think what the high ticket gigs are getting is a lot more deep understanding of what their business model and their industry is going through. Because I always want to leave the stage having people go, I didn't know he was in this industry for so long. He knows everything that's going on in this industry. So I had the unbelievable good fortune of working with essentially it's a financial planning agency or a private office, if you will. So they work with extremely high net worth families. And I did a fair amount of deep dive research with them about, okay, what are your clients' biggest concerns about the future? And one of the biggest things that ended up leading to the program I delivered was they're afraid that the money's going to ruin their kids, and that they'll grow up to be spoiled and entitled and, not do anything in their world. So I, crafted a program specifically for that. And just one example of, going really deep into what do they need and what can I provide that would add value.
Sure. Well, if you can speak to everyone's concern in the room, you've got their captive attention. They're taking notes. It's not like, well, this thing worked in plumbing or home services or real estate. And you're like, that's not me. Like I'm,
totally
knowing your audience is big.
Totally. And this is a marketingism. You probably know it, but the saying that if you can articulate someone's problem better than they can, they naturally believe you have the solution. And so, once I interview a dozen or 24 people on what is going on, what concerns you, what are the big problems and headwinds you're facing, and they give me that, and then I say, I have an idea. I have a feeling the majority of people in this room are facing blah blah blah, and they're all like, oh my God, he knows me. How does this work? And what can you tell me that would solve for this? Mm-hmm. So yeah,
no, that's great. Yeah, and I think speaking is such an interesting industry too, because when we first got connected, that was something I was really interested in.
Yeah.
And doing speaking more professionally and making that jump to more paid gigs. And I did a couple of them right away.
Yep.
Did some travel. I was in like Tampa, Florida and some other places. And it sounds so cool on paper, like Wednesday afternoon, you're floating in the hotel pool the day before your speech or whatever. And it just got to the point for me, I was like, I just hate traveling by myself. Like, I mean, I do it, I'm tolerable, but I'm like, I'd rather enjoy these things with family or someone to share these memories with. Because there's times like I was in Tampa or Jacksonville, or I was in Canada for work by myself. I was like hiking the Banff National Park by myself because I'm like, I took a detour for a day on the way home, and like amazing experience. But I'm like, the whole time, like FaceTime my wife, my kids, my family. I'm like,
I wish someone were here with me.
like this kind of, there's some pros and cons for sure.
Totally. One of my buddies, Mitch Matthews, will always say that every dream job, there's an 80-20 suck factor. So 80% of it's great. And I would agree with you. I think traveling solo is not always what it's cracked up to be. I love to travel. I mean, it's one of my most favorite things about the job is to go and see new places and be in airports and, going through hotels and meeting Uber drivers and all that stuff. There's some excitement for it, around it for me. But what I'm really looking forward to, and I've done this a number of times with my kids, is taking people with me on these trips. So my kids have traveled with me. They've gone on gigs. They've hawked books at the back of the room and at the front of the stage. But we're almost empty nesters. And once we become empty nesters, then I'm excited about taking my wife with me and actually traveling and maybe packing 2 or 3 days on either side of a gig and having fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know we had a shoot in Puerto Rico in April. It was my wife and I's 5-year wedding anniversary. And it's the only time we were shooting a CEO interview series. So it's a very busy CEO of a larger company we work with, and he can only go that week. He was just so busy. I'm like, I can't go. Like, it's my 5-year anniversary. My wife's going to kill me if I skip town and go to Puerto Rico for a week.
Yeah.
And they're like, bring her with, we'll pay her way. We just need you there. If that works. So okay. So I'm like, let me ask her because I don't know. And then she's like, are you serious? All expenses paid trip to Puerto Rico for our anniversary. Hell yeah.
Done and done.
So she was on board.
No doubt.
And then she came on the shoot and held the camera and was helping the producers and stuff. It was kind of funny. She's like, I'll be whatever y'all carry about. I'll carry anything. I'm here for free. So
did you say her day rate is 3 times what
there you go.
Yep.
She's our most skilled producer. She's got some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
We're flying her in from France. So got to make her have an accent or something.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And then we could stay a couple days and kind of do it that way. So I think, like you said, there's ways to finesse it a little bit, but I think, like you said, there's definitely a suck factor to it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, no question. But that's true of every gig. And I think that's, and speaking to the entrepreneurs in your audience, it's like, that's the one thing that I think we all have in common and we have to get over is the idea of I'm going to avoid anything that sucks. No, the actual work is sometimes the sucky part. And then it's all the stuff that comes after it where you're like, this is awesome because I plowed through the sucky part, when I needed to.
Sure. What's the most unique place or situation you found yourself in when you were traveling? I'm speaking to a group of such and such. While you're thinking, I'll share mine.
Yeah.
I found myself at a conference in Jacksonville for a bioremediation company. They clean out hoarding houses and dead people at a crime scenes. And they were trying to figure out how to market their businesses. So they had me come and talk to them about it. I had to do so much research. I'm like, this is such a hard
That is a niche.
Thing. Yeah.
That is a niche if I've ever heard.
So we're sitting through the ones leading up to it. There's here's a product how to get blood stains out of carpet or cat pee out of the walls. And here's Ryan. He's going to talk to us about marketing.
Oh my God. So
it's great.
Some of those though probably create the best stories of all when you leave. I mean, this is a great point.
Yeah.
My most unique audience, let's see. I mean, this may not be unique, but it was definitely interesting. I got hired to come present to a women's engineering sorority.
Okay.
And I was getting ready to leave for the trip, and my wife, typically will say, "Oh, where are you going? And who are you speaking to?" And I let her know who the group was, and she's like, "Oh, what's it going to be like?" And I said, "What's what going to be like?" And she said, "Knowing you're the dumbest guy in the room." I was like, "Oh, that's harsh." True, but harsh. But I got in there and, as you might imagine, a lot of female engineers, very analytical, very intellectual in the way that they approach the world and things like that. But we had the most fun of virtually any group that I've ever been in front of, because I was like, hey, I just want you to give yourself permission to let your hair down and just have fun with me. And then we proceeded to for 90 minutes. It was amazing.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I feel like you mentioned it earlier, pulling inspiration from comedians and anybody that controls a room. Who are some of those people that you study or look at and be like, man, I need to work some of that type of comedy or entertainment value into my presentation?
If going back in in my notebooks and journals of who I studied, I could probably give you exact names. What I will say, Ryan, is that I studied Comedy Central for the better part of 2 years. I mean, I would watch, this was back when Comedy Central actually played comedians, they were doing.
Now they play reruns of like early 2000s rom-coms or
exactly.
funny slack comedy. So
exactly. And today you can get the majority of those on Netflix or wherever, right? But I would study comedians, and what I would be intently aware of is how they would tell a joke, how they would set it up, and a punchline that I was like, that's really funny. I want to break down why it was funny, and I need to figure out how can I use it in one of my bits. And some of the greatest content that I've ever delivered came from taking a comedian's work and then like putting it through the blender and making it my own. But you're 100% spot on. I followed comedians, and magicians are phenomenal at showmanship and creating that, that atmosphere on stage. So I would study those folks, and I would just look at the way they use their hands, the way they gestured to someone in the audience, those kinds of things. And just as like 2 points of maybe of interest or reference on this is that one of the things I learned about joke telling is that you could get an audience rolling if you tell a great joke, they'll laugh, right? But if you set up the joke and then you tell a punchline and they laugh, and another punchline and a third punchline, by the third punchline, they're generally rolling. And you could look at almost any comedian today. Nate Bargatze is a great example of this. He'll do a setup and then he does a punchline. People laugh. He does another punchline. They laugh harder. And by the third punchline, which is usually the most outrageous thing you could say, everybody's just, on the floor laughing. So I learned that setup, punchline, punchline, punchline. And then the second thing you'll notice when I deliver, if I'm pointing at an audience, it's always an open palm pointing out like this. And I just witnessed some comedians that they'd point at an audience with a finger, and there was like this sharpness to it.
It's kind of aggressive, right? It's like,
it's
you, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. And then saw a number of people that would gesture out like this. It's kind of like the 2-hand point at Disney. You don't have any Disney cast members that ever point. They'll do an open palm or they'll do a 2-finger. And so I started doing that, or I'd be like, oh, please, share. Someone raise their hand. Yes, please share. So I wanted to be very like accommodating or inviting to people when I was on stage. Mm-hmm. And I get those comments every now and again. And people will say, I don't know what it was, but I think what it was are these like little idiosyncratic things that I've picked up along the way and put in.
I love it. There's so many things I picked up on just from filming and attending events and things where I'm like, oh, they just lost the audience. Like, number one biggest pet peeve is when they're like, okay, everyone stand up.
Right.
We're going to stand up, and then, we're going to do this thing. And everyone kind of reluctantly stands up. And then it's like, it just annoys everyone. I'm like, now everyone hates you. Like, you've effectively like made everyone hate you. Or when they're like trying to get crowd interaction, and then someone will suggest something, and then you like shut it down, or you're like, that's a terrible. I'm like, okay, you got to like reward. Hey, like I've seen people like, oh, you actually raised your hand and you were brave. Like, here's a free book. I'll give you a free book at the back. And everyone's like paying attention. They're like, oh, I could get something free if I actually raise my hand. So there's ways to do it. I know Nate Bargatze, I was just watching an interview with him yesterday, and he was talking about how his setups for jokes, he's been a comedian for 20 years, finally like becoming popular.
Totally.
But he would say he builds his story arcs of having exit ramps. It's like he's on a road. So you're going through the journey, and at any point in the joke, he can get off. There's exit ramps everywhere in his jokes. So if he's not hitting, like the first punchline doesn't hit, he can detour the whole joke away because he knows the next 2 or 3 things won't get the laugh either, because he's done enough shows where he's like,
interesting.
They're not going to like this. So that's interesting. Some things I've done that are more like, I would say guerrilla tactics, were like the last speech I did. People were making fun of one of the guys, self-deprecating of his outfit he was wearing, the guy before me. So I'm sitting there right about to go on, and I was wearing like a Canadian tuxedo, basically like matching jean shirt and pants. So I quickly like found a picture of Alec Baldwin from like a movie in the years that he had like that on, and put that in there. And then I completely like botched the punchline because I like forgot the actor's name, and I didn't want to look back, and I was like, oh my gosh. So then everyone was laughing at me, but I was like, that was like almost like on the spot, like cute, trying to be funny with it. But
I love it. Something similar happened to me at an event where when I walked into the room, there were a number of, I don't want to say it was a college student audience, but someone probably got the great idea they were going to airdrop certain things to people, and they found Adam Carroll's iPhone on the AirDrop. So I get dropped this image that was meant to be like shocking, I'm sure, to me. Well, I ended up putting it in the programs, and I was like, God, nothing makes me feel more welcome than when someone sends me a welcome image via AirDrop. And so I put it up there, and they're all laughing and pointing at the kid who did it, So I go up and give them a knuckle. I was like, hey, nice job. I love this. But I think some of the greatest, whether they're comedians or performers or magicians or whomever on stage, if you can think on your feet and bring in whatever's happening around you, you're a star. Like you're really good at what you do if you can do that effectively.
Absolutely. No, I can't agree more. Shifting gears, let's talk about the shred method. Last time I talked, you were with Nick Durr. Is he still involved, or is he moved on in his career? Because he was working in the video sites. That's how I got connected with him. So
yeah, Nick did move on. He is doing financial advising actually down in Phoenix, Arizona. I still love Nick. He's my brother. We chatted he and I were texting last night. Nick was with me for the better part of about a year and a half. And as Shred was starting to kind of pick up steam, Nick was he was kind of enticed and lured in by his brother, who was working for a financial advisory firm. And it had always been a passion of Nick's. He'd kind of been doing pseudo financial advice with us anyway. So fully support him in going and doing that. He will forever be one of the founders of the Shred Method for sure. But I have a new team now. There's 4 of us that are working full time in the business, and we are constantly looking for the right people to join us.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to your guys' About Us page or the recruitment. Yeah. See if we can find some people.
For sure.
We touched on it earlier, but I'd love to dig deep into it. What is the Shred Method, and what are you guys helping people do?
Yeah. The Shred Method is a cash flow tool and a technique where we help people create efficiency with their income. And the simple way to put this, Ryan, is that most people's income is not efficient. And by that, I mean, we would call it kind of leisurely, lazily sitting, idling in your driveway, so to speak. All the while you're paying for really expensive things outside of the income. So let me give you an example. If your vehicle were idling out front, and when you got to work today, you just happened to let it idle all day long, knowing that you're going to go home at 4 or 5 o'clock today, what would you do if I said, hey, your car's idling out there?
Go turn it off.
Why?
Wasting gas and wasting money.
Yeah.
And putting a bunch of extra carbon emissions out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasting everything.
Yeah. Hard on the environment, hard on your engine. It's a waste of gas. It's inefficient, right? And yet what most people do with their income is their income sits in an account, checking account, savings account, for days or weeks or months on end, idling effectively, while they're paying compound interest or amortized interest on their mortgage and maybe their student loans and their credit cards and their car loans and all of that. So what we do is we show people through a complex algorithm how you can leverage and create efficiency with your income so that you can blast away all of your debt in record time and then really begin to build wealth. And the underlying idea is this, that by the time someone has spent the majority of their life working, they will probably have spent about $650,000 in interest as well. And if you could claw back even 2/3 or half of that amount of money, you'd have that much more available for you to retire on. And so we teach people how to do that in a really fun, interactive way.
No, it's super cool. I know we kind of touched on this through my journey as well, and it was super interesting to hear about it. Kind of the nuts and bolts side of it, I know, because people are like, how would you even do that?
Yeah.
Just from a 10,000-foot view, like what are some of the mechanisms or the financial tools that you're using to help people do this, or kind of advising them on how to do it?
Yep. The number one tool that we use is typically a line of credit. So it could be a HELOC, home equity line of credit. It could be a BLOC, a business line of credit, if you're a business owner and you have easy access to get one of those, which candidly, they're extremely simple to get if you have an LLC or a business bank account somewhere. We use a HELOC. We use income that flows through the HELOC. And then our piece of software will tell you based on how much you have coming in and how much you have going out and what your debt load is. It'll tell you when to make lump sum payments to those debts in a priority order where you're paying the least amount of interest possible. So some of our greatest success stories from shredders are people who have knocked out all of their student loan debt in 6 months. as an example. We've had a couple people who got rid of 3 car loans that their family had, and it freed up the better part of $1,200 a month in discretionary income, which then started targeting their mortgage, which meant their mortgage was cut in half within about 18 months. And then we taught them how to minimize their mortgage payment. So imagine working with us within 18 or 24 months, cutting your mortgage payment in half and reducing all of the other debt payments you have. How much more free might you feel? And that's kind of our promise to folks is life's hard enough as it is, but it's especially hard when you're playing a banker's game where you're financing everything and just assuming that paying those minimum fees or minimum payments is the way to get ahead, because it really isn't.
And it's most financial products, it's a financial hamster wheel, right? Your mortgage is front loaded on interest first 5-10 years, and people, what's the average time people's in a house? Like 6-7 years. Yep. They're just paying all that. The banks get rich, yep, and you just keep not paying down your mortgage.
Totally.
It's kind of nuts. And I know even like the car loan debacle, like you get a 72-month note on your car, yep, and then your car lasts maybe like another year, and then it shits the bed, and then you have to go buy a new one. And it's like, oh, great, I only had like no car payment for about 6 to 12 months, and then it's back on the debt payment again. So it's just, I can't imagine if somebody went from having suffocating worry, distress around, I can't even afford groceries, like I can't, my kid needs medical attention, I can't go to the hospital, to go to like, oh, now we don't have like any bills at all. We just have to pay our mortgage interest or mortgage taxes once a year. Yeah. And that's it. So
it's very freeing. What we talk about is there is psychological safety and psychological freedom in what we do. And taking nothing away from advisors, financial advisors out there, because I believe that investing in the market and putting money away for the future is critical. But the fact of the matter is there are some folks who would much rather be completely debt-free and know they could retire early than put an extra $10 or $15 or $20,000 a year in the market. And our mentality is you actually don't have to choose either, or you can do both. So as an example, Ryan, if I said, hey, if you could claw back or carve out $30,000 extra a year to invest, would you be interested?
Sure.
And this is without working more or scrimping and saving or doing anything. You obviously would, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So for the majority of folks out there, what I tell them is if you have a $300,000 mortgage, $300,000 to $400,000 mortgage, let's say, you're probably spending at least $30,000 a year in interest on your mortgage if you're in the first 5 years. So what if within 18 or 24 months, we could claw back a ton of that money that you're already paying in interest and instead use that to build your own wealth? That's effectively what we're teaching people how to do. And it's super revealing because most people don't have an income problem. You know what I mean by that? Like there's enough income to cover whatever expense they have. The banks underwrite us for that very purpose, right? If your DTI is too high, your debt to income ratio, they'll just say, oh, you don't qualify, right? So most people don't have an income problem. They have a payment problem, which means I have too many payments and I don't have enough money left over to knock those payments out. So what we do is we show them how to use your existing income, use an existing tool most people have access to, which is a HELOC if you're a homeowner, or a BLOC if you're a business owner. And then we show them how to use that to begin working their way out of that payment problem to create more and more cash flow every single month.
That's crazy. I know and you've talked about this kind of being a fintech product now. Yeah. So this was a method. You tried this on your own family and your own situation. Tell me about the story with your personal situation. You're drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for, the better part of 13 years at this point. In 2010, my wife and I moved into a house, and it was a stretch for us. And I think this is like a common story probably. People go, oh, it's our dream home. It's a little tight, but we're going to make it work. And this was the deal for my wife and I. And we had lived in the home for about a year. I had been introduced to Shred. I knew it was named differently at the time, and it was a concept that wasn't as fully baked, and the strategy and the method that we have today is a little bit more involved. But I was like, I want to do this to prove to myself that it works. And between around 2011, late 2011 and early 2015, so it was about 3.5 years, we paid off a $270,000 mortgage. Not on crazy income. without scrimping and saving, we definitely weren't beans and rice people, you know. I'm more of like a steak and red wine guy.
Sure.
So you can do it. You can still do it without scrimping. But we blasted away 270 grand. And I was like, this works. I have to tell everybody about this, because when you go 9 months to a year, 18 months with no mortgage payment, and you realize how freeing it is to not have $1,800 or $2,500 going out the door, it's, oh my gosh, it's like the most freeing thing imaginable. So rates dipped in 2016. And I was like, we did it once, let's do it again. So we pulled out $250,000 from our home equity. We did a little bit of reno on the house. We put a ton of money in the market and a ton of money in a syndication, a real estate deal. And then we proceeded to shred again. And we got rid of $250,000 in about 2.7 years. And then we did it a third time when rates dipped in 2020. And so, you know, during COVID, we got 2.875% interest rates. And people were like, why would you ever pay this off? It's so dumb. And what I was realizing was, it's not dumb to pay down a 3% rate or less. It's actually beneficial if you do some advanced lump sum payments, but then you let that low rate ride for a period of time because you've already exhausted a bunch of the amortization schedule, right?
Mm-hmm. And you're throwing that extra money at the principal, right? Just to knock that down. Yep.
Correct. So what happened was we borrowed another $200,000. We put that in a syndication. We started paying down the mortgage. We got it to about $80,000. And then I did a strategy that we have now started sharing with other people, but we basically recast our mortgage. So we were about 2 years into the mortgage itself. We'd gone from $200,000 to $80,000, and our payment every single month to live in our beautiful 5,000 square foot home in West Des Moines was $335 a month, which you would have a hard time renting an apartment in Ames for that amount of money. You know what I mean?
And your neighbors are probably drunk and spilling stuff all over.
100%. 100%. So I felt like we had kind of cornered this strategy of using shred to reduce the principal balance of the mortgage, using recasting to minimize our monthly payment. And then we just had all this extra discretionary income. And that started going into investments in mass. Because the other thing that happens as you use the system, as you well know, is when you reduce your debt load, your expense profile gets very, very small. And now you're making the same amount of money you were making before, but your expenses are half or less of what they were before. And now it's like, okay, well, now we're super flush and we have all the flexibility we want.
Right. No, that's super cool. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. I mean, I know a lot of people that are nearing retirement age that, you know, work the corporate job type of deal. I think it's a lot of America, you know, and it's like just waiting for a promotion to get a little bit more extra money and then probably go and spend that and buy something that's a depreciated asset. And like, oh my God, like you got a $10,000 raise and you went and bought a $45,000 car on credit for, it's like, what are you thinking?
Right.
This is how, you know, so I think it's interesting. Do banks hate you now at this point? Cause they know you're like working the system and they see what you're doing. Like, oh, I don't know if we should work with this guy anymore.
Yeah. I've had a couple interactions with bankers who it's really bad if the bank is holding a mortgage. They really don't like that because you are literally peeling away all the profit from the lender. But that being said, I've found some really great financial partners that love the fact that through a HELOC, which is a product they're offering, we can show people how to become financially free. And the longer story for most of our shredders is they become really good banking clients. Because either they're keeping a ton of money in deposits in the bank over time, or they're leveraging the investment side of the bank. So they are getting more and more money in assets under management at some point in time. There is a funny story about the bank, though. I happen to do all of my banking with a local credit union. And the CFO of the credit union at one point reached out and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "There's more activity in your account than virtually anybody else in the credit union. So what is happening?" And I kind of relayed what we were doing in the strategy. And I was like, "Is it a problem?" And he's like, "It's not a problem. It's just we're making no profit on any of your accounts, you know?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to carry on then if it's okay. I didn't mind." In my mind, Listen, not to vilify banks and lenders, because I think what they offer is an amazing product. It allows us to buy the things we want and live the life we want. But what if there is a better way of playing the bank's game? And they're clearly playing a game. If we don't know what that game is, all you have to do is drive in a 20-mile radius of this building, and you'll probably hit no less than 100 financial institutions. And they are in $10 million buildings or more. So they're playing a game and they're winning it, right? We can play that same game and we can come out on top.
No, I love it. There's so much about that we can go deeper on, but I think if people are wanting to learn more about this method in detail, where can they go? And then we can continue on the conversation. But
yeah, there's two places really that I would direct people, Ryan. The first is theshredmethod.com. And on our website, we have a masterclass. We've got a financial calculator that you can plug your own numbers in, and it will give you your savings amount and how quickly you could be out of debt. And then the second place I would direct people is the YouTube channel. So if you just search Shred Method or The Shred Method on YouTube, avoid all of the ones about six-pack abs and things like that, because that's usually what I get when people are like, oh, is it a workout thing? Not really. But if you see the Shred Method logo, follow that channel. There's a ton of great videos out there on the topic.
Oh, that's great. What an age of information we have. There's probably someone like you 30 years ago that figured this out, that just kept it to themselves, paid off their mortgage and didn't tell anybody. And now sharing that information is super awesome. So
and I'll tell you one last comment that I make on this is when people say, hey, you've been doing this a long time, or you've been in financial education a long time, why shred? Why is this sticking? When you find a strategy that works so well for you and so many others, hundreds of other people using the system, hundreds have paid off debt, hundreds have created financial freedom, thousands, probably tens of thousands across the world who are using the strategy. It is nearly impossible for me not to share it. Because when people say, oh, God, I'm going to have to work for another 15 years, or I don't know how I'm going to pay for college or pay for braces or those kinds of things, that is not even a concern for the majority of our shredders, because they're figuring out how to live in a cash flow world where it's actually working for them, and their money is doing the four things that it's supposed to do: paying their expenses, eliminating debt, building wealth, and doing good or having fun. And most people, all they do is they pay expenses and have fun, and they never get around to the other two.
Sure. It's so interesting though, because we've had other people on the show. We've talked with, like, my financial coach, Travis Shelton, was on, talked about my journey with that. And we've also had like rental cash flow. His name's Matt Kruger on the show. Yep. He's based in Russell, Iowa, if you're familiar, but he got into rentals, and I think he has 12 rentals here in Des Moines. They're cash flowing like 40 or 45 grand in profit a month.
Yep.
Just enough to give him freedom in his time schedule to hang out with his kids. But he's like, oh, I'll try social media. I think he said this year alone, he's made over $250,000 a year on social media from like just having the time to do it, like freeing you up and everything.
Yeah.
So I think like you said, there's a million ways to cut this pie.
Yeah.
Start a business, invest in real estate, pay off your debt, whatever. But it's like, if you can limit your expenses, free up that money, and then put it to work, I think life is going to be so much easier for people.
No question. And there's a couple of examples I could probably point to of people who make crazy amounts of money in their business or in their job, but they live a lifestyle that is so expensive for them to maintain. There's very little left over to actually create that freedom gap, right? And so one of the things that we advocate is there has to be money left over at the end of every month. There can't be more month at the end of your money. That is not a ticket to success. And what you do with that money is really important. So if we can teach people, here's what you do with the extra funds, and we can show them how to create these efficiencies in 12 or 18 or 24 months, it is a game changer.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Moving on here, I know you've authored 4 books, right?
Yep.
So tell me about like getting into becoming an author. What was that journey like for you?
Well, this is in the Wayback Machine. My very first book was called Winning the Money Game, and it's a rule book to achieving financial success for young people. The intent of that book, candidly, when my co-author and I wrote it, was we knew that we wanted to create a speaking platform to go out and begin delivering this content. And he's like, well, what about a book? And do you have this idea? I have this idea, and what if we collaborated on it? And keep in mind, this is like 2002 and 2003, We knew nothing about publishing, knew nothing about Amazon. Self-publishing was kind of a thing, but not really. So we did like 2 weeks of copious research on selfpublishing.com and booksjustbooks.com and all these, various channels that were, by the way, super web 1.0, like these are rudimentary AOL type websites. And somehow we managed to get a book printed. And our first book, I think we ordered 3,000 copies. They were $1.07 a piece. I remember this distinctly because I was like, well, how many should we order? Should we order 500? And at 500, they were like $3 or $4 a piece. But if you ordered 3,000, you could get them for $1.07, which was a better deal. That process of getting that book published led me to do the next one, and then the third one, and the fourth book that I did. The first three were really money related, and the fourth one is called the Build a Bigger Life Manifesto. And that book was more about the lessons that I had learned up to that point and wanting to make sure I could share those with as many people as possible. Candidly, Ryan, I think I wrote the book more for my kids than I wrote it for an audience. But I just, for whatever reason, I love the process of crafting a book and getting it published.
That's great. For someone that's out there that might be looking at becoming an author, would you suggest doing self-publish, or would you suggest like finding a publishing partner?
There are pros and cons to both. I remember going to a conference where I met a dude named Peter Billigus, and Peter had written a book also about financial stuff. And it was called Getting Loaded. And it had a drink, it had like a old fashioned on the front cover. So it was definitely geared towards college students, with a little bit of drinking motif throughout, right? And I met him at this conference, and I had my cheap little $1.07 book with me, and he had his book that was a Penguin Putnam, professionally published piece. And he's like, "Do you want to swap books?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'd love to take your book." And he hands it over to me. I hand mine over to him, and I'm like, "Oh, wow." And he's like, "I wish I would have done this." And I'm like, "Dude, you have a Penguin Putnam. This book is going to be in Barnes and Noble." And he's like, "Yeah, and it cost me $11 to buy any book. I can't sell them at events and make any money. I have to front load all that money to get it." Right.
Yeah.
So there is a strategy for book publishing that if you're using it to promote your business, and it's going to be one that you're handing out almost like a business card, self-publish. But if you are looking to share some main message, and the message is going to be universal and it will become part of a bigger initiative or program of yours, then I'd recommend trying to go the traditional publisher route. Just know this, even if you go traditional publisher, they are going to expect you to do the majority of the marketing, because there's very little money involved in marketing from a publisher's perspective. So they would rather you have a list, or you have a platform that you're already creating. You could do one, you could get professionally published and sell them through the podcast if you wanted to,
Sure.
or through your client list or whatever it would be, right? My gut level is it's good for people to start with the self-published, but I will be honest, my next book will be a professionally published book, and it will be almost 100% sure it's going to be based on my TED Talk.
Sure.
And the reason being there, it has a little bit of a platform. There's been millions of views already. I feel like if people saw that book and it says the TED Talk with over 6 million views, that would also get some eyeballs and get the book sold.
Sure. I'm sure it's a wild experience too if you're traveling for work and then you like look in an airport bookstore and there's your mug. Like what a wild experience.
Yeah, totally.
What was kind of the hardest part about writing a book? Did you really struggle with sitting down and just putting pen to paper or finger to keyboard at the current age?
Yeah. Yes is the short answer to that. Although what I realized, and I think most authors do, is that when you get in the zone and you know where you write best, how you write best, when you write best, you do just sort of train your brain that, I mean, you know this, like you go into the gym, you know exactly what you do when you get in there, and there's a process you're going to follow. So for me, writing looked like 5:30 to 7:30 in the morning at Starbucks with the same drink every single time. I'd get a tall pike with a little bit of cream and 2 raw sugars, and that would sit there, and I would start writing. And my goal was I need to get 2,000 words written in a certain amount of time. And I knew that if I strung enough days together doing that, I'd have a 75, 80,000 word book.
Sure.
So I really enjoyed the process where some people I think kind of labor through it. For me, it's just like, it's fun. It's a creative outlet.
Sure.
Looking back, I've read some of the stuff that I started with and it's like, oh my God, this is so schlocky and terrible, but you got to do that, right? They're first drafts of everything.
Yeah. I love it. Now, I actually started a manuscript or an book outline for something I was going to write before my kids were born, like a video marketing book, kind of taking my knowledge and putting it into something. And it was kind of I know I'm going to be a dad shortly and I'm going to have no time. So I kind of just wanted to get what's in my head at that time and get it into something. And then I can kind of come back to it later. It's been 3-4 years ago. I should probably go back to it and see, but
it's time.
Yeah. And it's like you said, especially as a marketing avenue of like something that again could get a speaking engagement or kind of like thought leadership or whatever. There's a lot of benefits to that for sure.
No doubt.
Kind of a random question here. What is the, let's see here. We talk about big picture stuff with young adults that are listening to the show. What do you feel like on the macro side, like super wide angle lens here?
Yeah.
What's like the biggest financial decision that's really plaguing the youth of America right now? Like 20 to 30-year-old people coming out of college or starting their careers.
Well, I think there is a main question about affordability in society today of how can I afford all this stuff that I have going on? And I would point to things like home ownership and driving the vehicle you want and all those things. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I think this generation, the 20-somethings that have come up, grew up with Instagram. It was just part of their world from the very get-go. And I think the majority of savvy 20-somethings probably understand that is most people's highlight reel, not their behind the scenes. Yet what it still does is it shows this like VIP life. And I think people want to live the VIP life right away. One of the pieces of advice I used to give college students was, you can have everything you want in life, everything. You just can't have it at 22. And if you try and have it at 22 or 25 or 28, you will probably continue paying for it for the rest of your life. But if you're willing to wait a period of time and do the foundational things necessary to be able to afford that lifestyle, you could probably have it by the time you're 28 or 30, and then you'll afford it for the rest of your life. So, this is probably a little more tactical and granular, but for young people today, if you're looking at, I want to get started, I want to own a place, my recommendation is go buy a duplex and buy a crappy duplex. Buy one that you got to put a little elbow grease into, and you're going to have a couple of randos from Craigslist on the other side of you, but they are going to help you begin building your financial future, your fortress. Do that once, maybe when you're 23 or 24. When you're 26, do it again. Buy another duplex, maybe a fourplex this time. You can live in one unit and rent the other 3 out while you fix it up. And then 2 years later, when you're 28, you'll have plenty of cash flow. You'll have plenty of assets. Go buy the dream home and get the car you want and all of that. But it does take a little bit of time to get there. And I think for 20-somethings today, there's this like, I want to have it right now, and I can because somebody's going to help me afford it. Right? The banker around the corner or the Affirm, buy now, pay later kind of mentality. That's what gets people in this problem where we have a payment problem in our country today. And what I want to do is create the next generation of people who are lean and liquid and independent, because those are the people who will be game changers. They will build businesses. They will create loving families. They'll probably cover their kids' college costs, if that's a thing in 20 years. But that's what I'm after, is to help those folks achieve what I think in my version of the American dream is.
No, I love it. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of macro issues. People like to blame. I hate when people just point fingers at stuff like, oh, it's the this, that, and the other thing, or the mortgage, or the interest rates, or the economy, or whatever. And it's like, stop doing stupid stuff with your money. Like, stop doing that. Or like being an adult, people want to like, oh, I don't want to grow up. And it's like, well, growing up is having like, yes, working hard, but have it planned. Like, have a bigger picture, not just like constantly doing stuff that just taking the legs out from under you. It's like, you need to do this one thing or stop doing this one thing, but you keep doing it. Yeah. Whatever that is. It's like, just that's what being an adult is, We have coached folks through the shred method. And candidly, our goal is to help people who do have more money at the end of their month.
But we've gotten some people who will come to us and say, I don't have any discretionary income. And then we coach them like, okay, well, let's go through your numbers and find out why. Where is this going? Because you make pretty good money, right? And one interesting case study was a gentleman who, single guy, but making good money, like 6 figures plus, living in Chicago, which is an expensive city. And as I'm going through the spending over the course of a couple of months, I said, just ballpark it. How much do you spend in food? Just eating out, DoorDashes, whatever. How much do you think you spend? And they're like, I don't know, maybe $1,000 a month. And I said, on average, over the last 60 days, you've spent $2,200 a month in food expense. Now, this is more than most families of 5 or 6 are spending if they're going to the grocery store on the reg. And I go, I get you're door dashing a lot of this, but 30% of it was convenience cost.
Oh, just go to the gas station.
Yeah.
Right?
Going to the gas station, paying for delivery fees. It wasn't even food. It was just to bring the food to the door, or the benefit of having it prepared already for you instead of you preparing it for yourself. And it's those things that, like, if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to do for a couple of years what most people won't do. But if you do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what most people can't do. And I point back to very early on in my wife and I's marriage. She's a great cook, and she's like, hey, I just don't think we need to eat out all the time. And we got into a habit where it was like, okay, we'll do that 2 or 3 times a month, maybe. And to this day, it's probably one of the greatest cost savings that we have, where we're not going and dropping $40 or $50 for dinner, multiple times a week.
Sure. No, I love it. And finding the areas where you can cut down, like I said, DoorDash, I feel like is, especially in my generation, it's crazy. Like I've only DoorDashed a few times because it's like I'll fly into Oklahoma for a shoot at like a gym or something.
Yeah.
So we'll DoorDash lunch because I'm like, we're shooting, just need to bring it and then we can eat and keep going.
Yep.
But I'm just seeing, I'm like, the service fee on this is like $10 for like a $10 item. Like they doubled the price to bring it to me, and then they expect 20% tip. I'm like,
right.
This is nuts. Like it's a $10 burrito, but it's a $40 purchase. I'm like,
you could have eaten 4 times.
Yeah, I could have taken everyone with us to sit down dinner. Like it's just nuts. Like kind of and people do that every day for lunch, supper, everything. Yeah. If you're a DoorDasher, listen to this. Like we're not vilifying you, but like just it's crazy. Like what people spend on it. So I know for us it was we like to do our grocery shopping on Sundays.
Yeah.
Fairway's closed on Sundays. I live in Polk City. It's the only grocery store in town.
Yeah.
So we started looking at other options and ended up finding like Walmart grocery. You can do all of the ordering online and just go pick it up. And that's the problem. If you go in, you start wanting to buy more stuff, especially in a superstore or Target or Walmart or whatever. And that's been a huge thing for us, is saying, hey, if our budget's this amount of money, you can plug that in, put all your stuff in there, and then it stays under the amount, which is kind of nice too. So there's a lot of ways around it.
There are. And I mean, this could be its own show, right? Like the
ways to save money.
Budgeting with Ryan and stuff. There are so many ways to do this. And I think to the people who have dedicated their life to helping other people live more frugally, it's amazing, right? Like follow those people. What I've found is when you get into certain habits and just like, I'm going to keep my expenses below this certain amount, and you just do it routinely and religiously, all the rest of it goes to building a bigger life instead of a bigger lifestyle.
No, I love it. That's great. Let's jump into the lightning round. We'll take a break here from the hard questions, and we'll get to the speedy questions.
Oh, nice. So
these are going to be fun. Right out of the gate, what's the best finance book besides one of the 4 that you've written? What's your go-to best finance book you've ever read?
The best, can I do 2? I have 2 books here. One is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. Classic book. And number 2 was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which just came out maybe a couple of years ago. And the way that both of them tackle financial mindset and how we're programmed and what our money script is brilliant, because all of us are running money scripts, whether we know it or not.
I love it. In that vein, I'll say my favorite finance one for business was Profit First. Mike Michalowicz. Love that book. Still use it to this day. Great approach. That's
Mike's a cool dude
One
too.
Piece. Oh, did you meet him?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Oh, nice.
And he's super responsive. You can reach out and say, I want you on my podcast. He'd probably be like, cool.
Sure.
What's the angle?
Yeah, I'll fly to you wherever we're going. Dave Ramsey, do you love him or do you hate him?
I love Dave Ramsey in the sense that he was a major on-ramp to a lot of people to get their finances in order. I dislike Dave Ramsey in the fact that he has become a judgmental old curmudgeon.
Okay.
And he's such an ass on his show that it bothers me when he will like berate someone on the show that's been on his phone for 30 seconds. And I think there's a little bit of like shock jock value to it. But I also think there's people who have enough shame and guilt around money. They don't need to be shamed by some dude who's worth $1 gazillion, right? Who's been at it for 40 years. So he has the ability to tell them, but come on, have a little compassion.
Sure.
That's where I'm at with him.
Totally get it. Biggest regret purchase that you've made?
Oh my gosh. The biggest regret purchase that I made is I bought a house at an auction and it proceeded to be the money pit.
Oh, okay.
And it was the most brilliant learning lesson I think I've ever had, and the hardest 5 years of my life that I've ever gone through, because my wife, I don't think I think she had an assumption that I was going to go in and maybe make an offer. I don't think she thought I was going to come home with like a signed purchase agreement. And I did. So it was a partner and I, we both put 10% down, bought this house that basically was like in a foreclosure, auction on the front steps. And we walked in and I'm following this old timer around us. Like, you clearly know what you're doing. What would you do with this house? And he's like, do this, do this, do this, fix this, get rid of this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what should have we paid for it? And he goes, about $35,000 less than you did. And I was like, oh man. So expensive lesson. But I have the battle scars and the lessons that I won't do that again.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
In that same vein, what's the one category that's like guilt-free spending for you that you are okay with like spending a little extra money on because it lights you up?
Certainly vacations. I can think of no better way to spend hard-earned money than going and creating sticky memories with your family. Above all else, I would go do that 9 times out of 10. And right up there with vacations would be concert experiences. So I love live music. I love traveling with my family. If I can combine those two, it's game on.
Love it. All right. So we got F1, marry one, kill one on the 3 worst things here. This one will be a slight change, but
okay.
One is Afterpay, sports betting, or a sports car for your first car that's like super expensive. So the F1 would be you do it like once just because it's fun.
Yeah.
Marry one, you'd be stuck with doing it all the time, like every week, and then kill one, you would never do it. So of those 3, which one would you order him?
Oh my gosh. Can you give me the 3 again?
Yeah. So we got Afterpay. So paying installment payments for like small purchases. Like I need a new notebook for my school. I'm going to pay 4 cents a month for whatever.
Yeah.
Second one, sports betting.
Okay.
And then third one is like dropping like 40 grand on a brand new sports car right out of college.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I would, I would probably, gosh, that's really hard. So F, marry, or kill. Let's see. I would definitely kill Afterpay.
Okay. I'm probably with you on that.
Yeah. I just don't understand that. And I think anyone who goes down that path is probably, they're going to experience a lot of financial hardship throughout their life. Marry, honestly, I kind of like the idea of driving a sports car. And there's a little bit of a caveat I have to put on this. So I bought, now it's not like a $110,000 car. It was more like a $10,000 car. But I bought a Pontiac Solstice Roadster, like a convertible
coupe, yeah.
And I bought it last year in October, and it's been the most fun that I've had driving ever. I mean, it's just so much fun to put the top down and cruise on a beautiful day. So I love the idea of getting that. So I think I said marry that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then I would F sports betting.
There you go. Do it for a week or 2 and try it once. That's fun. Yeah. That's fun. No, I love that. I think there's so much to say about and I'll see people my age doing different things, like you said, sports betting, or they're doing Afterpay, or they're financing their entire lifestyle, and to say, I'll figure it out later. And it's like, oh my gosh, or they graduate college and go buy like a brand new Range Rover. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes. So
yeah, almost done here. Best and worst business investments you've made. Like what's been the best business investment or just investment in general that you ever made?
Well, I would say that again, this is a two-parter. I think the best investment I've ever made is in myself and in education and coaching and expanding my own skill set and knowledge. And I think for entrepreneurs out there, sometimes that like feels like a splurge maybe. And I want to really, really reiterate the importance of adding to your own value, because your skill sets can be exponential, right? And the amount that you can create is not limited to how much work you can do. It's how many systems you can put in place and build a work environment around you that works for you, not because of you. So number one is me. Number two is I did invest in Shred. I mean, I bought the source code from the owner, the previous owner. And it was a lot, and I wasn't sure where I was going with it at the time. But I think there's something about putting a significant amount of time and money into a project that you become committed. If I had said to my wife, hey, we're going to put $250,000 in this thing, I'm not really sure of it, she'd have been like, well, you better get sure of it. You know what I mean? So there is something about putting your name on the line and a certain amount of money that it heightens your seriousness about it. And what I love about this business is, number one, we're helping a ton of people. Number two, it's created a recurring revenue stream. And for any entrepreneur that's listening, that is one thing you really want to build in your business, is recurring revenue, because it allows you to sleep easier at night and allows you to build and grow month after month instead of just eating what you kill. So this business was the best investment.
No, I love it. That's great. Last question. Would you rather have unlimited airline miles for life or never have to pay taxes again?
Oh my gosh.
Only asking the hard questions.
You are. Unlimited airline miles for life or no taxes. I would probably say no taxes.
Okay.
Yeah. Primarily because I know that might drive me to make even more money. And with more money, you can buy any airline ticket you want.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I know Mark Cuban on an interview once said that he got one of those American Airlines unlimited lifetime passes. They only did it for like 2 years. Like, this was really stupid.
Yeah.
The accountants are like, stop it. So
yeah.
That's great. Okay. Well, you've passed the gauntlet. Congratulations.
Excellent.
We're kind of bringing it all together here. We talked a little bit about kind of your career as a speaker, and now I think it's in February, you're launching the Speaker Launchpad, right?
Yeah.
So you're starting to educate speakers on how to start a business around this. At what point did you say, okay, I've done this enough, I can start educating speakers on how to start a business that way?
I wish I could say that it was my decision to do it. It honestly, Ryan, came more about because of the number of people who would reach out and say, I want to do more of this. How do I do this? And I got a lot of, can I pick your brain over coffee kind of requests, which I was fine doing. My challenge was that I was encountering a lot of people who they would want to sit and pick my brain over coffee, but they never put anything into action.
Sure.
And a friend of mine said, what will cure that is a registration fee.
Paygate it. Yeah.
Because they'll show up. If they pay, they show up, they're going to want to take it and they're going to want to run with it. We've actually done 3 of these so far, the launch pads. We have a 4th one coming up at the end of September, and then next year we'll do one in February. But we've had just incredible success stories, people who've come through and didn't know they had a gig in them, a keynote, signature keynote. And I teach a very formulaic way of building content and then a very structured way of marketing yourself as a speaker. And I would say it's been a raging success for the majority of them. We have some that will say, I'm still not sure. And part of that, candidly, is as you know it well now, you just have to get up and do it.
Right.
And then once you get 2 or 3 or 4 under your belt, you're like, oh, well, this isn't that bad. I just need to know my material a little bit better. And so the goal of that is to continue doing 3 or 4 a year and pump it out, 10 new speakers every time we do it, who eventually will go out and crush the stage.
Do you ever think you could open up like an agency or a bureau that could help place some of these people? Is that kind of the bigger picture for it, or as you build your bigger life?
Yeah. Yeah. We've, my partners and I on this have talked about this, and I love the idea of a bureau. I think part of it, and really successful bureaus are the ones who are booking the Mark Cubans and the super CEOs and celebrities. But I think there is a market for a bureau that has new and startup speakers that are in the, call it $1,000 to $5,000 space. Time will tell. I don't know if that's a 26 or 27 plan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking in terms of like value ladders, like you think of like Russell Brunson always talks about, like in his .com secrets book, that's stuck with me for like 10 years now, is like always have a higher price thing you can sell someone that's like loving what you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't just have like the one book, like,
right.
Oh, you like the book? Well, hire me to come speak. Oh, you like me speaking? Like, have me come be a consultant or a coach for you, or join my mastermind. Then,
totally.
Like maybe I should be a consultant for you. It's like having those layers of going deeper, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that could be on the horizon for you. So
love that.
We also talked about kind of tying everything together as we're bringing the interview to a close here. You've talked to a lot of college students, a lot of young adults. You've written books for them. What would be like one good piece of advice for 20-somethings that are feeling stuck and they want to live a bigger life and they're trying to figure out what that is? Like, what would be a good piece of advice you'd want to give those people?
It's one of my favorite pieces of advice, or my favorite sayings. And it basically is that our lives are perfectly engineered for the results we're currently getting. And that if someone really wants different, they have to do different. And sometimes that means shedding an old version of yourself. That could be health-wise. It could be, mentally or emotionally. It could be the group of friends that you're hanging out with are not the ones that you want to be hanging out with. And I did a program not too long ago where I said, most people have one of three groups. You have a fear group, a beer group, or a peer group. And a lot of people are hanging out with fear and beer groups, and they're not taking you anywhere, right? Fear groups especially, they're the ones who are like, oh my God, ain't it awful that blah, blah, blah. And have you seen the latest in the political spectrum? And if you're focused on that, and there's a lot to be focused on, you could be very fearful. But fear and joy do not exist simultaneously. And so what I choose to do, and for young people who want to get ahead, I would say, what is it that you could truly see joy in doing? And how do you add more of that to your life? So if that is a business, how do you moonlight? How do you do from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. or 6 p.m. to midnight, 9 to midnight, like you were doing? How do you work on that thing so that you start to feel the joy of doing that, where you can finally make the leap and start living that life that you most want? But I will tell you, there is a period of time where you'll have to go through this dark forest of determining, is this the right friend? Is this the right friend? Should I be doing this? Should I be spending money on this? And it's almost like reorienting yourself to the new version of you. So I would reiterate the statement that our lives are perfectly engineered for the results we're currently getting. And if we want to change the results, we just have to re-engineer who we are.
God, I love that. That's perfect. Kind of the other last piece here is when you're looking back at your life, you've talked about kind of going through this dark forest, finding your avenues of success or happiness or what have you. Did you ever think, like, looking back at your life when you got that diploma at UNI and you were up all night the night before with all your buddies, that like looking at your life now, could you ever have pictured what you're doing now back then?
I'm pausing because I candidly, I'm like going back through mentally in my journals. What did I write about who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing? I honestly think this is a big week because I turned 50 at the end of this week.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I made it half a century. But in looking back, I think where I'm at right now is probably how I imagined my life to be at this point. Would I have loved to have had more zeros behind the accounts? For sure. But I've created a life of freedom and flexibility, and that's what I was always about. So I don't know that 21, 22-year-old me would say, oh, at 50, this is what you'll be doing. But I do think the path that I took was pretty intentional based on what I wanted to do when I was that age.
I love it. That's all my questions I have for you today. I'm sure we could make an entire other podcast about financial stuff. Adam, where can people find more about you to maybe book you to speak or connect with you professionally?
Yeah, thank you for asking. The best place to go to find me for information about speaking and things like that is Adam Carroll with 2 R's and 2 L's .info. So that is my speaker page. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn open networker. They had a thing years ago, the Lions, of LinkedIn Open Networkers. So I have thousands and thousands of connections. But I love that notion because I can typically connect with people that are 2 or 3 layers deep on my LinkedIn channel. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram, adam.carroll on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming in and chopping it up with me. I appreciate you for coming to my booth and to do your green screen stuff. So thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, this is so cool. I love the studio. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. This was super fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If you guys have made it this far on the show, you guys know what to do. Make sure to go check out everything. We'll link below with Adam's information. Check him out on social media. And if you made it this far on the show, please give us a subscribe. We need 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel so we can monetize, so we start making some money. So do that.
Yes.
And make sure to check us out on social media for clips from all of our last 90 episodes that we've had out there. But until next Monday, my name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and I'm out. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snod Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snodmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.